and thank you for joining us on the Tuesday edition of Journalists Hangout. I am Bukola Samuel Wemimo. Today on the program, despite concerns over rising debt, Senate vows to approve President Buhari's $30 billion loan request. APC lifts suspension on Akeredolu, Amosun, Okorocha and others. And later on the show, Recapture Kukawa local government area from Boko Haram. Borno Governor tells military. I will be hanging out with Babajide, Kolade-Otitoju and Emeka, Madunagu. Journalists Hangout starts now. Thank you for joining us. If we consider the axiom that the shoulders of a borrower are always a little straighter than those of a beggar, then we should shudder at attempts of slipping into indebtedness. But despite concerns over rising external debt of Nigeria, which stands at about $27.16 billion, external borrowing is still in the offing for the country. Senate President Senator Ahmad Lawan says the upper legislative chamber will approve a $29.96 billion loan request by President Muhammadu Buhari. Senator Lawan, who was addressing journalists in Abuja on the request earlier rejected by the 8th National Assembly, said the Senate would ensure that the fund is tied to the execution of projects. Welcome to Journalist Hangout. Once again, my guests today are Babajide, Kolade-Otitoju and Emeka, Madunagu. Welcome to the program.
Good evening. Thank you.
Now, with a $27.16 billion debt, does Nigeria have the capacity for further borrowing, Babajide?
It's something to worry about. It shows that we are facing serious problem of liquidity, and once you begin to face problems of liquidity, you see signs that you are heading southwards, and technical bankruptcy could then happen. That is not what we want to see. Yes, you can see, everyone can see that we are moving inexorably towards a debt trap. But the question is, do we have an option? The option is to simply refuse to do something about the infrastructure decay in our country, because the infrastructure deficit that we suffer, we cannot find the money to redress it. We certainly can't find the money. And no matter how we widen the tax base, we will also not find enough money, because tax itself is a function of profit. You have to engender an atmosphere of production and ensure that people are able to make money. That is when you can be sure that tax will grow. Without that, tax cannot grow. You then have to do something about revenue generation. All the revenue generating agencies are not doing quite well. You can see that the customs, they had to fall back on the closure of the borders to be able to meet their target, and all. It's been difficult. Imports are not enough to generate the quantum of revenue that can actually boost the custom revenue. So at the end of the day, we have no choice. We have to look for loans here and there. But the questions that need to be asked are, at what interest rate are you getting these loans? What do you intend to do with the loans that you are getting here and there? If you are going to be wise, then your loans must be used for projects that will generate revenue in itself. For example, if you give me the chance to take a loan, I will take a loan and invest that loan on the power sector, and we then ensure that the tariff is increased in such a manner that people will feel comfortable to come and invest in that sector, because you cannot fight against what's it called, market forces, a situation in which we want to determine the tariff that the stakeholders in the sector charge users of electricity. Would not encourage people to come and invest in the sector, and they will not make enough money. You see, what we are doing, we are pumping money into, we are giving them bailouts, this and that. Let the market forces determine the tariff. So for me, what the point I'm making is that if I want to take a loan, I will put it in a sector where I know that within a short time, I will be able to generate revenue, you know, in the final analysis. Yes, the rail, for example, the rail transport has the capacity to move far more people than any form of transportation. So if you invest in rail, you will be able to move people. Commuting will be a lot easier, and more people will be involved in commuting. You will also be able to make money off it. But if you take loans and you do not invest the loans, you do not use the loans for projects that you will be able to make enough money in return, then we'll be back to square one. Once there's what economists do is that once they see a window, an opportunity to borrow at a very generous rate, then they take that opportunity. In time, you'll be able to pay back. Maybe if things get bad, our revenue base itself will go up. But we're also not helping ourselves, allowing subsidy to go on in a country like ours. All the countries around us, there's no subsidy on petroleum. That's why people would at the point of death, try to smuggle petrol across our borders. So, and we've been told today that subsidy currently is 21 naira. This year, we have spent about 750 billion on subsidy. No country does this kind of thing. No country. So, money that we could use on infrastructure and other areas, and even save us having to borrow here and there, we are busy spending on subsidizing pilgrimage. We are busy spending on subsidizing consumption, subsidizing petrol. No one does that. We are busy using it on dual exchange rates. Tell me any country in the world that operates the dual exchange rate, because we just use it to make rent seekers richer. This is what is going on. Every time we'll complain that we don't have money.
The pilgrims will come after you, Babajide. Let's move forward.
They have to go for spiritual.
Babajide touched on two critical questions, Emeka.
Yes.
He asked if Nigeria has an option apart from borrowing. That is one. Two, he talked about tying borrowing to practical projects. And then he also said something
that will generate money.
That will generate money. He also said
in fact, I want our roads to be told, for example.
Yes.
I want our roads to be told.
Yes.
If you take money from China to build a road, you need to toll look at Lagos-Ibadan Expressway. We are told that at least 10 million people commute on that road. You can imagine the money that we'll make if every driver that uses that road pays even 10 naira. You know.
So the widening tax base, he says it is not enough to fund the budget. Do you agree?
I think let me even start with the details. You know, as put on Twitter by one of President Buhari's aides, Ajuri Ngelale. You know, he talked about 9 areas that the what he calls the stimulus plan. That's for a stimulus plan to enable Nigeria to compete favorably with other African countries, you know, in readiness for the Continental Free Trade Agreement. So the areas are information works, transportation, power, education, soil minerals, e-governance, social investment, agriculture, and water resources. 10 areas, you know. And if you now follow after because he was responding, there was a point where, you know, Timi Dakolo, the musician, you know, said that he said a tweet that these people want to borrow us into you know, out of existence. And then I replied him and sent, forwarded these details. So, and then if you look at the interactions, somebody asked him on Twitter that government has talked of raking in so much, billions and trillions in internally generated revenues. Where have these revenues gone to? Now, let me read Ajuri's response. He said, internally generated revenues fund are recurrent. Army, Navy, Air Force, civil servants, public hospitals, public schools, NYSC, empowerment programs, etc. Remember that federal government shares its earnings with state and local governments. People often lose sight of that. Then somebody now said, great, this government must focus on reducing our running costs. We can't, as a nation, grow if we spend 100% of our income on recurrent expenditures. Then, look at the details. You find the East-West Road that has been budgeted for again and again. Somebody even asked a question, is the East-West Road going to Jericho? Where is it going to? Is it going from Nigeria to Australia? And then you now find a very interesting, piece here. Under information, it says NTA digitalization project. And I wonder, people have said it again and again, that some of these government agencies should be privatized completely, that they should become more commercially driven. After all, you have private variants, private companies offering, doing their business, plying their trade in the same industry, and they are paying salaries. They are taking care of their overhead costs. So how can you have agencies that are being funded by government and that can run on their own if they are properly restructured and repositioned? So you now look at some of these things, even look at the road projects. You now wonder, some of these road projects, you have Ibadan to Kano Railway, then you have the Coastal Railway, Calabar, Port Harcourt, One Deep Sea Port. Coastal Railway to service the Deep Sea Port. And I don't think any work has even started on the Deep Sea Port. You have then you talk about Coastal Railway, Ibadan to Kano Railway, Abuja Mass Rail, to City Center to outer districts. Coming now to your question, how are we going to fund the repayment of these loans? Because if you even look at the road projects, Lagos-Ibadan Expressway is not there. You don't have Port Harcourt to Enugu Expressway. You don't have setting up Abuja, Kaduna, Kano Expressway. Now, I've mentioned very busy expressways that, of course, could ordinarily generate, revenue. Mm-hmm. Just like Babajide said. If you look at the Lekki Expressway, there is a site, when you are on the Lekki Expressway, it's an average of 250 per car, 250, 400, depending on the make of the vehicle. Then if you go through the Koyi VI bridge, the suspended bridge, average of 400 naira, 600 naira, and all of that. And then there are people who pay in advance, so they have e-tax. And now you can talk, if Lagos State government says, okay, this is one area where we generate much of the money that keeps this state running. They can project and say, okay, this is the number. They can just put radars there and say, okay, let's do. And I think Lagos State government did that under the former government.
Are you saying that Nigeria has an option? Nigeria doesn't have an option? What
I'm driving at is that some of the projects in this stimulus plan, I hope, Senate President Ahmad Lawan should do this country a favor. The legislature must remain independent. He must stop ridiculing the legislature, making it look like one office, an appendage of the presidency. Do your oversight functions, but stop making statements that tend to even attract ridicule to the National Assembly. That, okay, everything the president wants, we'll do it. No. You must scrutinize everything. Because you remember some people said, okay, that Saraki's Senate frustrated President Buhari and all of that. But the same Ahmad Lawan said that the Senate didn't approve the loan request then because it did not contain details. So that counts as what some people were saying previously. Of course. So when you come to these details, the Senate needs to ask the presidency, the presidential branch, that is the executive branch, show us how these projects are going to be, how you're going to pay back these loans. Because you have some loans 21 years, 25 years maturity, 20 years maturity, and 15 years maturity, and all of that. How are you going to pay this money back?
Okay, and that brings me to Babajide. The concern that this loan will shore up.
Sorry, there's also the Mambila Hydro Power Project, which Babajide did a story on. Now, I wonder, it has been budgeted for, and then it's still coming up here. I don't know.
No, because we can't find the money even for that project.
We can
No
talk
so what's the commercial value of the project?
about the commercial viability of the project tied to the loan. But let's look at the concern that it is crowding out recurrent expenditure and capital expenditure, and it will shoot up debt servicing to 3 trillion naira. And that is not just for the 2020 budget, but for subsequent budgets. Babajide,
there's already concern about that. Because right now, that's why I disagree that the size of the budget is actually what we've been told. Because if you've announced that you are in the market to secure a loan for $2.5 billion to fund that budget, and you have also announced that 2.4 trillion naira would be used to service debt in that same budget, then the size of the budget, in terms of the actualities, the size of the budget is not as big as we've been told. Because I just like to face reality. The truth is, there's a problem with revenue generation. That's a big problem. Even when we talk about tax, a lot of the rich people who should pay tax don't pay taxes in our country. And where they pay, they don't pay enough. If you live in Europe, musicians, footballers, when they get to a threshold, they start paying about 40% of their income.
as tax.
Yes, as tax.
Hold the thought there. We have Mustafa calling in from Maiduguri. Hello, Mustafa. Sorry, Mustafa. Go ahead.
Start paying as much as 40% of their income as tax. This has been there. I remember that a club like Arsenal Football Club was even helping its players to defray part of the cost because it's so huge. So some players will not feel like playing in England because the tax is so high compared to some of the European countries where it is less flexible. But the point that I'm making is the rich people in our country who can afford Lamborghinis, who can afford Porsche and the rest of them, the artists who flaunt their wealth in their faces, whether the wealth is illegally acquired or not, they flaunt it in their faces. The other day, one of them was accused of stealing a car, and he said, no, I have a Porsche, I have this, I have that. I have a Bentley. How much, that's the one who sings these songs. That song. So $1.
And you expect Bukola to go?
So Monaira. So the thing is, we must get the rich to pay a lot more. If I have my way, someone on a salary less than 40,000 should not pay tax. Because it's killing.
I can't say that enough.
It's killing. But there are a lot more people who should pay who are not paying. They are the ones even bribing tax officials to not come to their door to harass them to pay. So we need to do something in that area. Yes, tax, we need to widen the tax base, get more people to pay. It will still not be enough, but at least it will help us a little bit. We have not reached the point that we will not need to borrow. The alternative is simply to leave some of those projects unattended to. A government can say, yes, we didn't borrow so much. But I'm looking at some of the projects that President Buhari wants to embark upon, these elaborate rail projects. Honestly, if you can deliver those rail projects to us, rail projects stretching from one part of the country, from the most extreme part of our country to the other.
Yeah, Ibadan to Kano.
Ibadan to Kano, for example, or even taking from Lagos to Maiduguri. I mean, nobody will forget him. And more people will be able to commute on those via rail, and will save our roads. Why is it that our roads do not last? Because our roads are not designed to carry dead weight. And you see all these tankers coming all the way to Lagos. in the to lift fuel. In the past, trains were used to transport petroleum products to other parts of the country. At least I used to see them in Ilorin in those days. So infrastructure has a way of reflecting the economy. Remember that when America slipped into recession, President Obama said, we will spend ourselves out of recession. That was the language that he used.
Let's take Samuel,
and he also had a stimulus
Ilorin.
plan.
Let's take Samuel from Ilorin. Hello, Samuel.
Samuel from Ilorin.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay.
Samuel, you're on. Go ahead.
Okay. Is what is still giving us money. This loan like to tell anyone.
Okay, Samuel, please try and call again. Perhaps the network will be better and we'll be able to hear you more clearly. Thank you, Samuel. Yes.
If we move hundreds of thousands of people every year by rail and they pay, revenue, the government revenue will go up. There's no doubt about it. If we free some funds from the subsidy, which I believe a lot of people have just been turned to billionaires with it. If we free some funds from there, if 70, we've already been told that we've spent 750 billion on subsidy this year. You can imagine having that money
available for capital.
Capital expenditure. All of what we are given Fashola to fix roads this year is not up to that. And he has the Lagos-Ibadan Expressway to deal with. He has the even the one in the east. The second Niger bridge. If he decides to use what is being given on those two roads alone, because you said they must deliver Lagos-Ibadan Expressway in 2020, honestly, you will have so little left. So let's then the needless dual exchange rate that we are operating, which is only an avenue for rent seekers to get rich at the expense of you and I. If we free it, if we abandon it, we'll also be able to save some funds. I'm saying that, yes, we do not have a choice. We will still need to borrow. But at least some of these funds, and then by the time Dangote finishes his refinery, we've been told that we'll be able to save about 10 billion every year, $10 billion. That's significant. So in future, the revenue streams and your capacity to access money would go up because you've been able to stop. Whether we like it or not, this subsidy will still stop it. It may not be now. But leaders set themselves apart by the courage that they show in leading the people. Whether we like it or not, one day we will still have to do away with this subsidy. So when we do away with it, at least the money that we are spending to sustain it, we'll be able to save it for something else. The money that we spend subsidizing pilgrimage, because we do that and the rest of the world just look at us like, what's wrong with these people? The moment we save from that, and some of the, no, let me not say that, they will fight me. But you know that people don't go for pilgrimage alone. Now, even some have been caught while trying to go for pilgrimage, trying to smuggle narcotics into Saudi Arabia, or even Israel, as the case may be. So I don't think we need to be wasting public funds on such things. Let's free some of those funds. Let's tax the rich people a lot more, so that we can at least save some more money for infrastructure.
So Emeka, this question goes to you now, but we'll take a call. If we freed up all these funds, from these sectors that Babajide talks about, will it take us halfway? And then what about corruption in the processes? Hello, we have Paul from Ilorin. Another call from Ilorin.
No, it's not call from Ilorin. It's Bob speaking from Jos.
Bob from Jos. Okay.
Yeah, B.O.B. speaking from Jos.
Okay. You're on.
It's unfortunate that I was watching you when NEPA performed their normal way of taking life. You know, so I can't see you again, but I think I can talk with you as I'm talking now.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
You know, the unfortunate part of it is that I think I remember sometime when in 1999 when our former president Obasanjo came in, that he met death. Nigeria was sowing heavily as at that time. You know that many countries was even trying to not doing business with us because of a heavy loan on us. And I think by that time, he asked them to write all that debt. I think Paris Club debt or whatever they call it. And they were telling us that if somebody, a citizen of Nigeria, can pay all that debt, why are we asking them to write it off? But eventually, he tried, he managed to write off the debt, and Nigeria had a clean bill. You understand me? I believe that when he left the government, Nigeria was not owing any country. We are no longer in debt with any country. What my advice is that this country, our president now, who wants to take this loan, should spend that loan wisely, especially on on electricity.
All right. Thank you very much, Bob. I wonder if that's a prudent way of looking at loan requests. expecting.
Let me answer.
Debt, like we had under Obasanjo, but go ahead and
let me answer your question directly. Like Raja has mentioned some areas. I've also mentioned some areas. There are government agencies that ordinarily generate revenue. So I think it will make sense to stop, sending subventions to such government agencies. They can compete favorably with their private sector counterparts. Yes. Then there are some other areas too that government can cut costs. The heavy pay of the National Assembly, the federal lawmakers, we need to look into that. We need to look into certain other areas. There has been this argument that can government maybe, for instance, do away with VAT and try an economic model that encourages more employment, greater employment so that more people can spend, encourage people to spend, because you're talking of a stimulus plan, but I don't see any explanation from government about how many jobs are going to be created, for instance, and then how you're going to encourage Nigerians to spend more. What we've been hearing is about tax, we are going to tax, but Obama said we are going to spend our way out of recession, and that, of course, Americans will be encouraged to spend more. So when you talk about corruption as well, basically, we don't really lack revenues like that. But we need to plug loopholes, leakages. We need to plug all those things. Now, the border has been closed, of course, because of certain things going through the border. But again, when the borders are reopened, won't we be going back to the same issues and so many other areas? You see, if we want this country to succeed, to survive, to move into the future, we must drop some of these sentiments, ethnic, religious sentiments, and make sure that it's about Nigeria. It's not, okay, for other people, you can apply the rules, all the way. But when it comes to your own people, you now bring waivers. These things hurt the economy, whether you like it or not. So looking at this plan that Ajuri calls the stimulus plan, listen, we must, if we say we are competing with other African countries, let's also look at how disciplined they are.
Evidently, there are options, but it requires some level of political will, to explore those options.
At least in Ghana now, Ghana came up with the idea that, look, if you are importing raw material for industries, then you don't pay any form of duty. And how that will stimulate the economy. It will definitely even get many of the foreign companies to come to Ghana to set up shop. Because all these foreign investors that we are talking about, they are not Red Cross workers. If the environment in your country is not conducive enough, if business is expensive to conduct in your country, they will go to other places, they will go to Angola, they will go to Mozambique, all of these countries. So we have to come up with policies that encourage production, and from production we will certainly earn more money.
More revenue. Still to come on Journalists Hangout, All Progressives Congress lifts suspension on Akeredolu, Amosun, Okorocha, and others. Stay with us, we'll be right back. Welcome back to Journalists Hangout. Politics thrives on give and take principle, which underpins the age-long statement that there are no permanent friends nor enemies in politics. The ruling All Progressives Congress APC has opted to toe the path of reconciliation by lifting the suspension it placed on some erring members. The APC National Working Committee announced on Monday that it had lifted the suspension of Governor Rotimi Akeredolu of Ondo State, former Governor of Ogun State, Senator Ibikunle Amosun, and his Imo State counterpart, Senator Okorocha. Others left off the hook are the Director General of Voice of Nigeria, Osita Okechukwu, and former Minister of Niger Delta Affairs, Uguru Usani. In a statement, the APC National Publicity Secretary, Lanre Issa Onilu, explained that the decision was based on fairness and harmony within the party. Gentlemen, how much of fairness and harmony is this? Is this a victory over the relationship that went sour between these actors and the national chairman, or is this really fairness? Babajide?
Well, the APC, especially the national chairman, is trying to woo as many friends as he can, because within the party there are those who have made up their minds to embarrass him and kick him off his perch. So he needs as many friends as he can make within the different power blocks in the party. So I'm not surprised that this decision has been taken. But the question to ask is, were lessons learned? I doubt if lessons were learned. In the case of Governor Akeredolu, for example, there was no sign that he was even suspended, because there was a reluctance to publicize his suspension. You know, when people were asked at that time, when people asked the question at that time, there was a reluctance to confirm that Akeredolu was on suspension. And where you found it difficult to confirm the suspension of an individual, to make public the suspension of an individual, how does that person then show remorse? Because what Akeredolu did during the general election was bad. Getting his party men to support a rival party, you know, and that also happened in Imo State because of the disagreement with Oshiomhole, especially. You know, Oshiomhole advised the governor of Imo State to not present his in-law as the candidate of the party. But Oshiomhole and the APC leadership were also tactless, because if you wanted to do that, you then must find the right candidate. But Oshiomhole probably went for the candidate who was probably the weakest in the race, because if I were Oshiomhole at that time, I would have looked for a candidate from Owerri zone. Owerri zone had been eager to have a shot at the governorship of Imo, and that is the largest voting bloc in the state. But what did we have? We had Okorocha's protégé from Olu zone, that's Okorocha's zone, and the APC candidate also from Olu zone. So even without being told, a political neophyte will know that by the time those two individuals smash themselves up terribly, the candidate of the PDP who came from Owerri zone would simply go home to victory. We also had, in the same election, Ikedi Hakim and Ararume came from Okigwe zone. They smashed each other's votes. So the PDP candidates stood alone from Owerri zone. And there were people, very strong and very committed APC members from Owerri zone, including the deputy to Okorocha, who could have been given the opportunity. Instead, they went for someone else who had just left the PDP. So when the APC national chairman criticizes other members of his party, when he points accusing fingers at other members of his parties, the rest of those fingers are pointed in his direction, because he also is fond of making mistakes that prove fatal to the well-being of his party. And I just gave the example. What were they thinking? Why didn't they think along that line? Why didn't they get someone from a wealthy zone? And there were a good number of them that they could have used instead of bringing someone who eventually even weakened the party's chances. So that's one. The constitution of the APC stipulates that the suspension of anybody must emanate from the ward level. For these individuals who were suspended, their suspensions didn't emanate from the ward level. At least Okorocha from his Boko ward was not suspended. In fact, they had the control of the APC apparatchik in the state. So it will have been difficult for anybody to get those people to punish him. So the suspension was over the head of the APC structures in Imo State. So I just hope that going forward, the party will be more, will take matters of discipline seriously and will weigh its actions very well before taking them, because clearly mistakes were made. The party lost Imo. The party couldn't win Cross River, where Uguru came from. And the party had to struggle to win in Ogun State because of the divisive stance of Amosun, who set up a party with the intention of decimating his own political party. And during his suspension, he was the one nominating candidates to fill positions at federal level. It was his own boy, in inverted commas, became a minister. And there are other positions that were vacant from Ogun State at federal level that Amosun was also the person who nominated people who claimed those positions. So can you really say that he was on suspension? You know? You can't really say that he was on suspension.
All right. Emeka, if we count back to, when the statement of their suspension, broke, maybe in all 5 or 6 months of suspension, and considering, Jide's analysis, would you say that this will serve as a deterrent enough, and you know how powerful governors can be for others in the future who may want to resort to this option during the critical time of elections?
I'll just take from something Babajide said. Have lessons been learned? The answer is no. Professor Ishesage said at the time, when the suspension was being considered, that one condition that should be looked into is if Amosun's protégé, Akeredolu, if he decided to take Dapo Abiodun, Governor Dapo Abiodun, if he decided to challenge his election, then the party would be in order to take strong disciplinary action against him. But you know what? Akeredolu went to court. Now, how can you be in APC?
Yeah, Supreme Court now.
The Supreme Court. Your protégé took the winner of the election from your party. You challenged his election.
And you won into the Senate on the APC ticket.
On the APC ticket. And you felt very comfortable with that. What are you trying to do? And you see, again, this also brings to mind, that some people exploit their relationship with the president. To do things that, abominable and unacceptable. I mean, how can somebody be undermining the party in his state? And he's nominating a minister, he's doing all kinds of things. He's moving about as if nothing will happen. Now, if he had succeeded in removing the governor, let's say the tribunal or the appeal court has said, okay, that Dapo Abiodun was not duly elected, that the certificate of return should be issued to Akeredolu, what would have happened? That would have really brought down the house of APC in Ogun State. But you are rewarding this same man with unqualified access. What are we talking about? Are you trying? I'm not a politician, but I feel that if you belong to a house, you should be ready to abide by the rules and regulations of the house, of that platform. And then again, you should do as a loyal party man, as a faithful party man. That's why you have the word party faithful. It's not for nothing that in English, you know, in English language, you have the word party faithful. As a loyal party man, you should do all you can to woo people to the party, not to divide the party, not to try and destroy the party. But the situation remains like that. So even though he has been recalled, is Akeredolu going to withdraw the case at the Supreme Court?
It's even too late because they are hearing the case now. They are to
so what are we talking about? And then you talk of Okorocha. INEC already suggested to the National Assembly that Okorocha's case should be that what happened, what was alleged, you know, after Okorocha was said to have won, that it should be considered, you know, in the amendment of the Electoral Act. That is, forcing electoral officers to declare a candidate winner under duress. INEC has already taken that up. That matter is still hanging. And it's a dent on the image of the party. Are the party's leaders considering this?
Why would they consider
I wonder if they had enough time. I wonder if the resolution of this issue had more to do with the president's intervention at the meeting held some weeks back, or the national chairman wanting to move Fred.
The president is going to be an election in Ondo State, a governorship election. I think it's not next year or so.
Yes.
So the party has to tidy its house. You know, it has to tidy up and get ready because the PDP is warming up. Seriously, other parties are warming up seriously. And any mistake, the president has already said that state chairmen should sit up and make sure they consolidate on their whole, where the parties, you know, the areas the party is controlling, they should consolidate on. Then areas where the party is not in control, they should try to do something about it. So the party has to move fast, even if, based on what Babajide said and you know what we know about Akeredolu's actions, even if he has not shown any remorse. But of course, the party has to be pragmatic while looking for ways to either deny him a second-time ticket or put him in check. The party has to look at that.
No, he has to make amends now because he's the one who wants to contest.
That's what I'm saying. So
he is the one.
Even if
the pressure will be more on him now.
They've shown good faith. The party has shown good faith.
He stopped some people from winning election the other day by backing people from other parties.
So now, changing
those guys,
party.
You know, those guys can wait for him now. Look, Shebi, it's your own turn now.
Yeah.
So he is the one who has to move quickly and see how you can.
But there's also
either way,
but there's also the party has lost something.
Either way, we are back to where we started from. There are no permanent enemies. What we have are permanent friends. Permanent interests in politics. Yes. Moving on now. Terrorism is the price of an empire. And if such empire must be kept intact, the government must be ready to pay the price of rooting insurgents out. Borno State Governor Professor Babajide has told the Nigerian military to do all what they could to recapture Kukawa local government area of the state from the Boko Haram insurgents. Professor Zulum made the appeal to the visiting Minister of Defense, retired Major General Bashir Magashi, who was in the state to assess the counterinsurgency operations. He lamented the economic stagnation in the area. According to him, a recaptured Kukawa local government area by the military will reboot economic activity in the Lake Chad region. Gentlemen, does the Nigerian military have the capacity as currently constituted to actualize that vision of Governor Babajide?
I think the first thing that we have to admit is that the governor of Borno State is a honest man. Many Nigerians like to deceive themselves that Boko Haram is not occupying any part of Nigeria. We've heard the president say that, especially when he's abroad. And I've said repeatedly, as someone who has gone to that area many times, who has flown on missions with the Air Force, who has gone to the front line unassisted, unaided to see our troops. I know what's going on in that area, and I've said repeatedly that there are still some Nigerian territories in the hands of Boko Haram. Now we have the governor coming out to tell us that
this is what it is.
Kukawa local government should be recaptured. Because Baga, you remember when the army locked up Daily Trust, because Daily Trust published a story that it was going to retake Baga, the army didn't confess that it lost Baga. Whereas these guys, they chased away our troops. they took over the headquarters of the multinational joint task force. They showed themselves in the premises of the multinational joint task force, playing, fixing the tires of their trucks. They showed themselves inside the war room of the multinational joint task force. At that time, I was still in Borno State. And I said, look, as we speak, Baga, the fishing town, and the headquarters of the Nigerian Navy in the northeast is in the hands of Boko Haram. Many people didn't believe me. Some were abusing me on Facebook. I still see some of them today. People who sit in their homes and you risk your life to go and meet soldiers, you see what's going on, and they still abuse you. You see the way we are? They don't go to that area. They are not prepared to risk your lives. I spent Christmas in Borno State just to get information, know what's going on, so that I will be in position to not be lied to. I want to be able to say, this is what I see. And you sit on Facebook abusing me, that is a liar, this and that. Invariably, the Nigerian Army Special Forces took back a portion of Baga, and the Chief of Army Staff was celebrating them. So I called some of the people who were abusing me. I said, have they not entered Baga now? If Baga was not taken in the first place, would there have been a need to enter the place and retake part of it as it happened that time? So as we speak today, Boko Haram is controlling the fishing business in that. That is the heart of the fishing business. And Boko Haram is in control of the business. There was a time that they showed a video showing some of the boats that they took away from the headquarters of the Navy. You can imagine how shameful. I looked at those videos, the video, and I saw Nigerian Navy boats. Boko Haram now control using them. So it is bad. But the big problem is that big parts of northern Borno, as big as northern Borno is, more than 90% of northern Borno is not defended at all. It's not defended. The communities, the people have been left to the elements in those communities. Only very few communities are even occupied. Look at,
and that's the concern of the governor.
Yes, from Monguno, from Madunagu to Baga is 213 kilometers. There are only 3 towns where you will find people. 213 kilometers. You will find people in only 3 towns. That's Gajigana, Gajiram, and Monguno. The Monguno is the garrison town. So the 7th division, they are in Monguno. No Boko Haram can enter Monguno. But that's just one town. Now, Monguno to Baga, there are 9 villages. 9 villages. Yoyo, Maisnaiti, Kekeno, Barwati, Dogashi, Bondor, Crosskawa, Geringiwa, Mais 4. All of these villages, there's not a single person living in them. You dare not. You dare not. So this is the thing. The governor has only tried to paint a picture that, look, if we can take these communities back, and these people, more than 500,000 of them who are in Monguno as IDPs, they can come back, live their normal lives. The economy will boom. So it's encouraging the military, go and take back these communities. Because Kukawa is, I think, the 2nd largest local government in Borno State. You can imagine the 2nd largest local government for Boko Haram to have chased people away from
As a matter of fact, the governor says this will rejuvenate the economy of the region, and it will reduce the menace of insurgency, because right now we have over 500,000 people in Monguno doing nothing.
Yeah,
we have 300,000 in Gajiram who are not doing anything. We have about 150,000 people in Moba who are not doing anything. It talks about the stark reality of the economic activity that is not happening in the area. We have another caller on the line. Hello.
Hello.
Mohammed.
Yes, Mohammed, your point job.
Yes, Mohammed, you're on. Go ahead.
Thank you very much. I want to comment about Babajide. You are saying the truth. Keep on saying the truth. Don't mind people. You know, in Nigeria, at times we are very sentimental. We don't want the truth. But that's the fact. I put in Maiduguri. I know Maiduguri in and out. What you are saying is the fact. People don't go there to just see that they are corner of the house saying all sorts of things. Don't mind them. Keep on doing your good work. God will bless you.
Thank you, Mohammed.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you very much,
you.
Mohammed. Emeka, so from Babajide's analysis now, how well equipped is the military, to actualize this concern of the governor of Borno State?
Yeah, we know that one major problem with the military is the lack of, sophisticated weapons to really fight these, Boko Haram and ISIS. Because in the case of Kukawa, the reports I've read, indicate that it's actually, the problem is actually ISIS, not just Boko Haram.
No, it's ISWAP, but it's a faction of Boko Haram, so we still call them Boko Haram.
So you have a large, it has a wider dimension. And it's a very important commercial town. Now, for as long as it remains in the hands of these terrorists, so long will economic activities around that area, the lives of millions of people be affected. So that means definitely that every effort must be made to get that place back. But I also look at it, we are entering into 2020 when the Buhari administration expects to get the Tucano jets from the United States. And is expecting jets from, maybe from Russia and some other places. But you see, there must be, as we enter into 2020, there must be a different approach, maybe a different strategy of effectively taking back as many territories as possible. It should not just be about asking the media not to report. If you ask the media not to report, the people on ground who are affected, they'll just connect to social media or talk to foreign news agencies, and they will see their grievances.
It's difficult to not report. It's difficult.
They will air their grievances. But the fact of the matter is that if you say you want Nigerians to support you, to encourage the troops, yes, the troops are Nigerians like us. They are brothers, they are sisters.
They are friends.
So definitely they are friends. We want them to succeed. But again, the fact that weapons and then jets are in short supply is a major cause for concern. So there must be a retooling, a regular retooling of the strategy.
And the Army and the Air Force must work together.
They must work together.
I oppose this idea of the Air Force simply going on its own separate mission. When you are going on the mission, go in tandem with the army, so that as you are softening up the ground, our troops are taking position, taking back the places where you have slaughtered these soldiers, these fighters. Because we have had to recapture some places up to 3 times. Why? Because we are not putting troops there to secure the area. Once we do the clearance operation, we go away. They come back. So it's not helping matters. The Air Force and the Army, they must work together. They must work together. You can't simply be doing your own and the Army too doing their own. No, that's not how it's done.
Babajide, can the same be said also of the multinational joint task force, for them to work together?
No, they are playing their part. They are playing their part. But they can't come deep into Nigeria. Some of the places that we are talking about are deep inside Nigerian territory. On the fringes, the Lake Chad area, the Chadian troops are doing a fantastic job. I've seen videos of Chadian troops dealing with Boko Haram. In fact, Boko Haram fears Chadian troops. Because when you see Chadians, if you see 30 of them moving, at least 15 of them will have RPG. And Boko Haram will not be able to stand them. They are well equipped. They are well trained. They are battle tested over the years, So they know that you don't mess with these ones. But they cannot come deep into Nigerian territory unless they are permitted. So these guys also know the areas that those guys will not go to. So they go to harass our people. Look at Chibok. Up till now, Boko Haram continues to terrorize people in the Chibok area. In fact, the Chibok area, the bulk of Chibok area, they are in control. They are in control. So it's a big problem. We have not solved the problem. The soldiers are doing their bit. They are trying their best. The Chief of Army Staff is doing his best. I cannot say it's not doing his best. The other day, I complained to a senior officer that, look, troops were being owed 2 months allowances in some parts of the Northeast. And he said, look, it's because paperwork sometimes delay payment. but that the chief of army staff will go out of his way to find money for these guys to be paid. And he told me, you see, within 2-3 weeks, the people you complain about will be paid. And that's what has happened. I was surprised when one of those troops sent me a message that, look, my soldiers have been paid. So it's a good thing. They are doing their best, but there is still battle, and we still have battles ahead.
Yeah.
You know, we must not believe that we have won the war when we have not won. When the rainy season comes now, you see those boys, they will be active again, because the rainy, the overgrown weeds provide foliage for them. They can hide. So this is the thing. I pray that the victory will
early 2020, we should be able to really deal a strong blow on Boko Haram. Regain Kukawa and some other very important
we hope
areas.
those issues of synergy, welfare, and the provision of equipment will be addressed, so that in 2020, the Nigerian armed forces will record greater victories against the insurgents.
Finally.
Absolutely. And that's all we have for you on the program today. Join us tomorrow for another edition of the program. Also watch Journalists Hangout on other platforms showing on your screen, and on YouTube at youtube.com/TVC News Nigeria. Our feedback channel is Journalists Hangout at tvcnews.tv. Thank you for watching. I am Bukola Samuel Wenimo. Bye for now, and God bless Nigeria.